Good morning, everyone. I am the Reverend William Levwood. My pronouns are he and him. I invite you this morning as we begin our service to close your other windows, apps, devices, to take a deep breath and center yourself for worship. We begin by calling forth the ancestors and descendants. We call forth the ancestors, the people who made each of us, the biological ancestors, spiritual ancestors, teachers, and guides. We call forth those who imagined and made this congregation possible, sustaining it up to this present day. We open in welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. And we seek healing with the people of this land whose bodies and spirits live on in their descendants, the present day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomac Indian tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. With this, let us open to the longings and hopes of all the descendants of all nations, that we might live for them today, honoring the ancestors as we move toward healing, so that all the descendants together shall one day know full justice.
And this morning, we welcome you to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. I am Judy Robison. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm happy to be your worship associate today. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world. All are welcome here in this justice-seeking, earth-healing community of faith. You are welcome no matter whom you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or abilities. You are welcome in this religious community. If you're new to Accotink and you would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to contact and reach out to me or to our minister, Reverend William Levwood, or to one of today's greeters, and you can put that in the chat. On our website, www.accotinkuu.org, you can check the online order of service on the worship section. While you're on the website, be sure to check our events page for upcoming virtual gatherings and other news. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our virtual coffee hour immediately after this service. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Allie Mills, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. When I was growing up, children and teenagers would share friendship bracelets with their closest friends. The friendship bracelet is braided or woven using different colored embroidery, floss, or threads, and were given as a sign of friendship. It was said that if you were given one, you should wear it until the threads fray or break. In wearing a friendship bracelet, you honor the hard work and effort your friend put into making them. If you removed the bracelet, it was an indication that your friendship had maybe gone sour. Some say it falls off naturally. You get to make a wish. Friendship bracelets like the ones we enjoyed making actually come from contemporary Mayan people from Guatemala, originating in the 1960s and then taking on political significance in the 1980s during civil unrest in Guatemala. It is likely that they were created in their bracelet form to be sold to tourists to support the livelihood of wandering vendors. It's important that it was easy for even children to make so that they could help support their family. Weaving has a lot of cultural and symbolic significance to the Mayans and to many other cultures throughout history and around the world. Weaving is acknowledged to be one of the oldest surviving crafts in the world. The tradition of weaving traces back to Neolithic times, approximately 12,000 years ago. Even before the actual process of weaving was discovered, the basic principle of weaving was applied to interlacing branches and twigs to create things like fences, baskets, and shelters for protection. Weaving is one of the primary methods of textile production, and it involves interlinking a set of vertical threads with a set of horizontal threads. Weaving can be done by hand or by using machines. Machines used for weaving are called looms, like this one shared by Connie Diamant. Each thread is just as important as the others around it. The thread starts out on individual spools and come in many different colors, each individual yet separate. On their own, the colors are beautiful and can be used for many different things. When woven together, these threads can become so much more. Each one unique in their color, but they all have an important role. The colors chosen often have significance as well. In this finished product, Connie shows us the beautiful example of some of the intricate, complex, interdependent designs within just this single placemat. With the colors blending or contrasting each other, amazing that those single threads, single colors, can be joined together in such a complex design. Included in the creative art exploration bag for this month, I included materials to practice weaving a simple placemat like this. I didn't think ahead to save some materials for myself, so we're going to watch a short clip on how to weave a placemat. Even if you didn't pick up the supplies, it's pretty easy to just fold the paper and make it yourself with this quick example.
The weft, and we're going to weave them into the work. So let's get started to it. So which color should I use first? Yellow. I'm going to show you how to do this. First, you got to go over and then under and over and under. So I'm going to, it might be tricky at first, but then it's easy. Put it all the way over to the side. Next step is you glue it. Glue it so it stays put. Next up is purple. So since I did this, next I'm going to go under and then over and then under and then over. Let me show you how to do it. Under here and then over here. Like this. The opposite of that one. Now push it all the way back to the first weft you did. Now open this slap and then glue it in. Don't forget to glue the top. Now I gotta open the other slap and go like that. Next one's yellow again.
Each of us is like a single thread, and community weaves us together into a complex design. As UUs, we often express this as the seventh principle, or the interdependent web for which we are all a part. We also share this image of interdependence on our Accotink logo. The final art exploration for today is making a simple paper chain like the one on our logo here. Thank you again to Connie Diamant for sharing all of her wonderful creations with us today.
So first you want to have half a piece of paper. So you just want to fold the top of this paper down to here. Now open it back up. And now you're going to want to cut or rip along this line. Okay, now you want to put one of them aside and fold this paper in half by folding this side to here. Now to get the cleanest finished, you would want this to be as exact as possible. And fold this side to here. And then you want to fold this side to here. Okay, now you want to draw a person, and for the head you want to stop halfway because it's going to be twice as wide as you draw it. And then you want to cut this shape out.
What are you doing? What are you watching? What are you cutting out?
Okay, now open it up. And this is your finished paper family.
I hope you all enjoyed that activity. And now our reading is titled Community Means Strength by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength, strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing. A circle of friends. Someplace where we can be free.
We continue the period of meditation. I invite you to breathe in and breathe out deeply. You can do this meditation with your eyes open or closed. Gather yourself together with your breath, grounding yourself in your body, and locate yourself in the mystery of this hour. Bring to your mind the state of the world. Bring to your mind your own personal needs and wants and longings in this moment. And just rest. Just be in the mystery of that experience. Feeling yourself, seeing yourself, feeling the world, seeing the world. Not striving, not attempting to do anything, but just being present in the mystery of this moment. And from this place of centering in the mystery, open yourself, bring to mind the strong body of a group of which you're a part. Think of your beloveds, think of those companions who are closest to you. They might be a part of one group that you're embedded in, or they might be stretched out across the nation or the globe. Imagine those people circling around you. Call them to mind. See them like Accotink's logo, holding hands around you. Maybe even imagine looking into each of their eyes and receiving a blessing of their presence from them in this moment. Know that this is the strong body that you can rest in, that you can give to and receive from. That these are the people, the intimates, the close friends and companions, the close family members that you will journey with as you move together towards wholeness, through the struggle, and with the power, your own power and the power of the collective. Perhaps when you were imagining the mystery of the moment you experienced some struggle, perhaps you had some worry or fear or sadness or motivating anger. Know that this strong body of companions will journey with you, bringing their power, joining their power with your power in the beautiful struggle as we move towards wholeness and collective liberation and more peace and joy and justice. And finally, breathing in, invite spirit to draw near. And for this meditation, the spirit we invite to draw near is the spirit of this group of companions. Draw that spirit near. Feel that spirit or those spirits, whether it comes to you as a collective sense or whether you're touching in for a moment again with each of the people in that circle that journeys with you. Draw that spirit near. Maybe even imagine all of those people melding into your body. Because we are a collective. We are a part of an interdependent web of existence and an interdependent web of community. We are not alone. We journey together towards wholeness. May we draw near to the spirit of love that surrounds and supports us. Amen, 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 and blessed be. The Reverend John Behrens describes Unitarian Universalists as a choosing people. We choose each other. We choose to covenant together, to journey together toward wholeness. I want to start off by sharing that I'm sure I'm not alone, that many of you also in this day and age share this, but I really love podcasts. And recently I've noticed something about podcasts. I've noticed that each podcast has a particular feeling, a mood, a texture, a culture of its own that you can get a sense of right from the first listen. Some emphasize humor, some are more reserved, some more intellectual, some bursting with joy and playfulness. But each one has its own character, and I respond to the character of the podcast. Sometimes that character, not the content, but the character works for me, moves me. And sometimes even when the content is good quality, the podcast itself just doesn't resonate for me personally. And I feel like a lot of things in life are like this, that if we think about the food that we like or the music, that it isn't in our minds, it isn't intellectual, it's visceral, what we're drawn to and what we're not drawn to. For myself, intellectually, I know that Mozart is brilliant. I know that Charlie Parker is brilliant, and I can appreciate that brilliance. I can appreciate it, but I don't really enjoy their music. It's work for me to notice and appreciate. I just don't feel it the way I do with other artists. I think it's important to acknowledge that and how it plays out in our lives, the chemistry that we feel with music or with a person or a place or a group. Imani Perry, in her book Breathe, 2020's UUA Common Read, an amazing memoir that she wrote as a letter to her 2 Black sons, advises her sons to find their tribe, the ones who speak their language. She tells them to love everyone with an agape love, but to hold themselves precious for these few, the people with whom they can share their interior illumination, that they can make in that love, that intimate love where they feel chemistry, where they can speak their language, that in that love they can find a technology to fill up the gaping holes. We could call these groups, these journey groups of close companions, pods. I don't know if I would have used that term before the pandemic, but it's something we're all familiar with now. And I've been thinking about when I've experienced this experience of close companionship, of a pod that I'm journeying with, and about what brings that about. And it isn't always all of the same things, but there are some common features. We could call what makes us experience that love that fills up the gaping holes, that makes it possible for us to share our interior illumination. We could call that podcasting, as in casting a line, fishing line, in search of a pod, in search of connection. In her book, The Art of Gathering, Priya Parker emphasizes one of these common features of what makes a group come alive. She lifts up that a pod needs to have a purpose. Now, that purpose could be just to connect with each other. It could be really a focus on seeding and cultivating relationship with each other. And that could be in an informal group of friends or a church fellowship group. Another way that a group could find purpose is through service, that pod together provides to the world, working for social justice or racial justice or LGBTQ justice, or caring for a community garden together. Whatever the purpose is, it can be diverse, it can come in many different types. What matters is that the pod has a purpose and that it's clear. Returning to the example of podcasts again, they usually have a purpose. The podcast On Being, one of my favorites, has Krista Tippett in conversation with diverse guests, ranging from spiritual leaders to scientists, community organizers to writers. But she almost always begins each of these conversations with the same question, inviting her guests to share about the spiritual foundation of their childhood. And this becomes the grounding for that podcast, for those conversations. The podcast Finding Our Way, true to its name, uses an opening question in which each guest is asked by host Prentice Hemphill how they would describe this moment that we find ourselves in. And from there, the conversation continues as together they in conversation and us as listeners participate in finding our way in this time. Another common feature of pods is that they can center around a particular interest or activity, a book group or a poetry group. an exploration of applied theology like Accotink's Tuesday theology talks, or an exploration of the journey of Unitarian Universalism like Accotink's Starting Points group, or of a monthly theme like the Soul Matters small groups, a new one of which will begin at Accotink soon on November 18th. What matters is not the particularity necessarily of the activity or the practice or the focus, but how having that shared interest, that shared focus, that shared practice engages members in a shared experience. Structure is also important. I found this to be very true when I lived in intentional communities. It's important that the structure provides not too much and not too little. Not too much structure and not too little much structure, not too much freedom, but not too little freedom. The Starting Points curriculum I just referred to calls this a flexible structure with lots of building blocks. And covenant groups, which spread through Unitarian Universalism in the 1990s, covenant groups like the Soul Matters small group ministries here at Accotink have a simple structure for open-ended sharing between participants with a focus on deep listening and connection that creates that flexible structure with building blocks, that sweet spot with just enough structure and just enough freedom for the magic to happen. Another common feature is the sharing of food. This was so evident during our live auction yesterday afternoon. I noticed that people were really drawn to bid on offerings that gave them an opportunity to connect with others, especially while sharing food and drink. People did bid on food and people bid on opportunities for fellowship, but when these two were combined, I'm guessing that as much as half of that almost $25,000 raised yesterday at the auction was raised through opportunities for groups of people to connect with each other over good food and drink. I want to share something about how we as Unitarian Universalists, how that is so emblematic of us as Unitarian Universalists. The Starting Points program that I mentioned contrasts Unitarian Universalism with other religious traditions, sharing that Christianity is concerned with sin and salvation, that Buddhism focuses on suffering caused by craving and the relieving of that suffering. But Unitarian Universalism is about how we can be disconnected and how connection can support us through the storms of life. This is why sharing deeply, being vulnerable is so crucial to our covenantal faith, so crucial to the seeding and cultivation of relationships. I want to give an example from the book I mentioned earlier, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, in which she shares a practice she developed in conversation with her family members, her husband and her mother, known as 15 toasts. Again, we find a simple structure, a dinner party in which guests are expected to share a toast in the form of a story from their lives on a particular shared topic for the evening. Oh, and there's a little twist to add a sense of urgency. The last person to toast has to sing their toast. Now, this practice has spread. 15 toast events have been hosted all over our nation, all over the world, in fact, with the theme changing at each gathering. There have been toasts to the theme of the stranger, to faith, to happiness, to a good life, to collateral damage, to escapes, to borders, to them, to fear, to risk, to rebellion, to romance, to dignity, to conflict, to tinkering. And I'm waiting for the 15 toast event that's focused on Accotink. There have been 15 toasts on the theme of the truth, 15 toasts to America, to local, to the fellow traveler, to origins, to the right problem, to the disrupted, to the fourth industrial revolution, to courage, and yes, to vulnerability. Notice how these themes provide a building block that is flexible, open-ended enough for each participant to put their own spin on it and to share deeply. It also doesn't have to be 15 toasts, by the way. That's just the name. It could be 12 or 8 or 13. What makes this a powerful way for connecting people, whether those people are strangers or longtime friends or family members, is that the toast comes in the form of a personal story. And that sharing of story invites deep and vulnerable sharing. In fact, Priya Parker notes that the themes, they don't shy away from the difficult stuff that talk about religion, politics. These are often the most successful for cultivating relationships within a group. And with that in mind, with the difficult stuff in mind, I want to lift up also that sometimes our pods let us down. I imagine many of us have examples of a pod that was deeply important to us, deeply supportive at a certain period in your life, that at some point was no longer a group that nurtured you and your flourishing. And these can be painful memories. But I encourage you, don't let that take away the real connections that you experienced in those pods. And I invite you to look for the wisdom that those experiences have to offer. Sometimes knowing how a group of close companions has let us down can offer us important lessons about who we are, about what cultivates and deepens relationships for us, about what kind of pod we're looking for now, casting our line out into the world as we search for a cohort of close companions who resonate with who we are and who we are becoming. A band of fellow travelers who we can journey together towards wholeness with. So in the spirit of the 15 toast practice, I invite you to bring to mind a story about a cohort of close companions. Perhaps the story comes to mind now, or maybe it will come later this afternoon or another day this week. It could be current or from a long time ago. I invite you to search for it, to bring it to mind, the pod and the story. Search for a story that's a bit vulnerable, and then see what lessons it has to offer you. Maybe even consider sharing it with someone else. Or maybe hearing about this practice, you want to offer a 15 toast dinner party for next year's auction. And I invite you also to consider joining our Soul Matters small group. New groups start every few months, with the next group starting on November 18th, as I mentioned. Or maybe you want to participate in the 4 sessions of the Starting Points program the next time that it's offered. It's a wonderful opportunity to deepen your UU journey. And whether you're a newcomer or a longtime member, it's an opportunity to connect with other Accotinkers. So If you're at a time to deepen with a pod of close companions you already know, or to find a new pod, or to invite a new person into your pod, remember some of the features that can help bring vibrancy to that. One of which, actually, according to Priya Parker, is to invite a new person in, but also to have a purpose, to have a centering in an activity or a shared interest, to find the right balance of structure and freedom in your gatherings, to break bread together, sharing food and drink, and to sharing your story and listening deeply to others' stories, sharing with increasing vulnerability as you feel more and more safe within that community. These are some of the ways to podcast, to cast a line, either to find a new pod or a new member of a pod, or to weave deeper connections with close companions you already have as we journey together towards wholeness. As we take Amani Perry's advice to find your tribe, the ones who speak your language, the people with whom you can share the interior illumination. That is the sacramental bond. Remember, you may love everyone in agape, but hold yourself precious for these few, and make in that love a technology to fill up the gaping holes and a gear that winds in the urgency of hope, because it is from there that revolutionary possibility emerges. May it be so, and may we be among those who make it so. Amen, 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 and blessed be.
Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world. I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
We close with the words we heard earlier from Starhawk. Community means strength. That joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. A circle of hands, arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends. May it be so.